Hi, this is TheDrownedGod, and I'm here with our Magic the Gathering team on YouTube, Mana Salsa. Hey, let's introduce our team members to you. From Ireland, we have JackOnlyByTheNight.
Hello.
From New England, we have Setsu2200.
Nice to be back.
And from Great Britain, we have Rothko42.
Hello.
And myself, here in America, TheDrownedGod. In our first episode, we had talked about the decks that we were going to play test during the week, and now we're back. We're going to talk about some of our results and any changes that we've made. Let's go ahead and talk to Jack. Jack, how did your deck fare this week during playtesting?
The deck was called Grave Counter. It's pretty good, yeah, solid. The main deck I wanted to test against was Red Deck Win because I think it's the fastest deck in the format, most aggressive. And I played around 10 games with it. I only lost one, and that's because I didn't draw the counter spells. Most of the time, like, even if they get the Goblin Guide down, that's really the only thing they're going to get down, because I'm either going to draw Doomblade, Mana Leak, or Deprive. So basically, if they're lucky, they get down their Goblin Guide, but I'm going to counter anything else they do till it gets around the 6th turn. Once you get the Grey Titan out, really there's nothing they can do, unless they want to double Lightning Bolt it, which is basically the only response I think they have. Every game I was in, they didn't get to. So, against a really aggressive deck, that's tier 1, it beats Red Deck Wins. You and I played Vampires against my deck, and it was pretty solid. Like, the only thing I'd have to side out Doomblades, because that's, useless. I tried it against a Bill deck as well. It beat that, no problem. Hands down. I think there was one game where he triple Archive trapped me, which basically meant I lost, but that didn't happen again. I tried against the Polymorph deck as well, beat that, except it was a blue-red Polymorph deck, so it wasn't the best. And your Hellkite deck, I don't know, that seemed pretty even, maybe a bit more in your favour. You're getting mana out so fast, so much of it, that I can't counter everything, even if I'm mana leaking you. You've still got the 3 mana to tap to counter it anyway, How do you think the deck played against Hellkite?
I think it was strong. Once you get out the Grave Titans, it's really difficult for my deck to deal with. It relies mostly on the mass removal of Lava Launch, and you have to have 9 mana out to take care of a Grave Titan. I would definitely have to side for that. I know we didn't side in our matches.
Also, I just want to say, Jace the Mind Sculptor is amazing in the deck, especially against aggressive decks like Red Deck Win, because I'm throwing him out and I'm pinging him for 1, and there's any creature you put out back in your hand, and it gives me an extra turn to draw removal or counters.
I did think it was an interesting part of your strategy is that's in there to counter another Mind Sculptor if he shows up. I'd seen other people where the strategy was to have a Jace Bellerin in their deck to counter a Mind Sculptor, and you just kind of stepped it up a little bit. And if you're gonna counter it, you might as well counter it with the man himself. Are there any cards in particular that you think you need to change out?
Yeah, like, I'm running 2 Wall Across because I thought that's 6 turns with no defense. All the matches I played, I think I played down the Wall of Frost once, and it didn't make any difference, so I think I'd take those 2 out and maybe put in 2 redirects. More counter, The All is Dust. Turn 7, you want to play it down, and if by turn 6 or 7, I want to be playing at the Grave Titan, I don't want to be wasting it on All is Dust. Possibly a sideboard card.
Thank you very much, Jack. Rothko, the name of your deck, and how did it fare during your playtesting?
I was testing a deck called Beastmaster's Pledge. Did pretty well. I did quite extensive testing with a range of different decks. Probably Red Deck Wins was one of the worst matchups.
Really?
Yeah.
Just
Hold on. I've made quite a few changes to the new version here.
I remember playing you myself, and I think you also played Jack, the version that you started out with, just basically plowed across our decks.
Yeah.
If I remember right. It was just very fast, and turn 4 or 5, it was game over.
Yeah, I've kept basically the same structure, but just added in things like Unified Will, which I completely forgot about that card. And I mean, I was messing around with testing out different counters and stuff like Mana Leak and the Gate, and it wasn't really working. Mainly to counter stuff like Dare Judgment and all this dust, which can be fairly brutal. You can recover from them just about, because just of the number of token producers you got on there. I was really pleased when I find Unified Will, because it works with the advantages of the deck. I mean, you're bound to have more creatures than the other player, whereas you're not likely to have more open mana on most opponents' turns, so Mana Leak doesn't work so well. I haven't made all that many other changes. I've lowered the land count a bit, because just late game land draws could be pretty brutal when you're wanting to just get that Alpha Strike in and drawing land. It's just frustrating.
You're very modest. It seems to me it was pretty devastating really fast.
Testing's gone pretty well. I mean, it's a fair matchup against most decks. Against blue-white control, because initially that was a bit of a rough matchup, which is a bit of a problem. But I think the alterations I've made have really made a bit of a difference. It's odd. I mean, they're just little things that can be quite brutal against it, like Cunning Spark Mage. That's horrible to play against, because, I mean, pretty much all the creatures are 1 toughness, and there's no removal in the deck. So just having that turn after turn, get rid of creatures, that can be pretty nasty.
Wow.
What else? Autumn's Veil in the sideboards works nicely against control decks, as well as the extra counter spells sliding in.
And I see you have a ley line of Satancy in the sideboard.
Yeah. It works quite nicely against RDW. Also stuff like Pyromancer's Ascension completely shuts that down.
Lightning.
Yeah, and Valakut Titan, which is getting pretty popular at the moment, pretty much shuts that down.
Okay.
Why is Valakut Titan so popular at the moment? It's like, on Magic Workstation, everyone's playing it. It's weird.
Really? Have you noticed that, Sudzu?
Yeah, I have. It's the new deck.
It's definitely a good deck.
Sounds pretty solid. I like it.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with the results.
Sudzu, what's the name of your deck? And can you tell us how some of your playtesting went this week?
Alright, well, I was a step behind you guys. I hadn't really made the deck yet, but I had the idea. The idea was to use Fauna Shaman in a more aggro sense. I'd seen it been using in, like, Mythic Conscription. I want to try it in more aggro thing to, like, drop Vengevine in your graveyard, basically get some sweet aggro creature, play it, get back the Vengevine, swing. So it looked pretty promising, but I found that a lot of the time, Fauna Shaman didn't really work well. Like, a lot of times, I could tutor up Vengevine, but I would rather just play Vengevine. Like, in the conscription decks, you can dump Vengevine into your yard rather than just play it because you got a lot of other stuff going on, and you have, like, the Sovereigns and all that stuff that you can play that's on par with Vengevine. But if you're playing an aggro deck where Vengevine's your best thing, dumping it into the graveyard, it slows you down a turn rather than just playing it, which is pretty good. The 1 mana also that it takes to activate Fauna Shaman is really big, I found. Like, if you're playing an aggro deck, you're trying to use all your mana before your opponent can stabilize, and using that 1 mana when you could be, like, maybe you're using that mana and then you can't play Leatherback Bailoff or something on turn 3, and then that's just pretty bad. That's not how you want to be using a card in an aggro deck. And I also found out a lot of times you'll keep a hand that looks really promising, and Fauna Shaman will just get Doombladed or Lightning Bolt or something, and your hand will totally go to crap, and you'll just lose really quick. One other thing I found was that to get Vengevine back off Fauna Shaman, you're going to be playing like 1-drops or 2-drops, and on turn 3 or 4, it's like, I got my Vengevine back, but I played 2 Birds of Paradise. That didn't get me anywhere. I could have just played Vengevine instead. So I found that Fauna Shaman probably works a lot better in Conscription. In aggro deck, it just is too, like, clunky to work very well. I think if I'm trying to go an aggro deck, I would just take the Fauna Shaman out. It's definitely got some power, and you look at it and you think, oh, if I do this and this, like, when you're just looking at a deck list, oh, that'll be great, and I'll totally beat him. But that's kind of like, you never get that hand. You're thinking of best case scenario, and that rarely happens.
It's very true. You kind of have to have it in synergy with the rest of your deck so that your hands count when you make that draw. Thank you very much. Pretty cool. That wraps it up for Mana Salsa episode 3, guys. Until next week, we'll be talking about any new spoilers and the new From the Vault set. Until next time, this is the Drowned God for Mana Salsa. Supposed to say bye, Jack.
Oh, okay. Bye. Am I the only one who says bye now?
Bye.
Is that like...
Yeah, it's your job.